This thing is freaking huge. I mean, it's like the size of 2 separate diesel locomotives. And that's because it is DD35A. Let's take a deeper look.
In 1962, Union Pacific began looking for a replacement of its now uneconomical turbine locomotives. They requested the big 3 manufacturers, EMD, ALCO, and GE, to come up with a 3 locomotive design that would total 15,000 horsepower using the 4-axle trucks from its current turbine units. EMD ended up producing a 4-unit arrangement that consisted of a GP35 at the front and rear, with 2 brand new cabless units in the middle that would each house all of the engine and electrical components of 2 GP35s on a single frame at 5,000 horsepower per unit. These were referred to as DD35s and numbered as B units. As with Union Pacific's earlier experience with cabless booster units, the lack of flexibility of these massive mainline-only units soon became apparent, and the planned follow-on order 15 units were changed from booster units to 15 units with fully equipped cabs. The DD35A, also known as the DD835, was a 5,000 horsepower diesel-electric locomotive with the DD wheel arrangement. Many people naturally think the DD stands for double diesel. While yes, this is a double diesel locomotive, the DD in the name refers to the wheel arrangement, which is 2 trucks with 4 powered axles each. It was built by General Motors Electric Motor Division exclusively for the Union Pacific Railroad. These 15 DDA locomotives were built between May and July of 1965 and were assigned road numbers 70 through 84. This request also led to the introduction of the ALCO Century 855 and the GE U50. Like its cabless predecessor, the DD35A is essentially 2 GP35 locomotives on a common frame riding on a pair of 4-axle flexocoil trucks. The cab of a GP35 was fitted to the front end, requiring a longer frame than the DD5B unit. The fuel tank beneath was lengthened, and the center pass-through walkway was offset a little to the rear because of the single cab. Another difference was that the DD35A was fitted with the new flared radiator section EMD was testing on its EMD 645 engine demonstrators. The DD35s were initially quite unreliable. Some of this was blamed on the sand from the internal sandboxes getting into the electrical gear, so new sandboxes were fitted to the exterior walkways in 1969. The DD35s were among the last EMD road units built with DC generators and old-fashioned switchgear that came over from the EMD-F units, which were more maintenance intensive than the later AC/DC equipment. This led to one of the major improvements in locomotive history with its replacement, the creation of the DDA-40X Centennials, which replaced the switchgear with experimental electronic control modules still used today, though much more modern versions are used in current locomotives. They also had more powerful, more efficient engines. Once teething troubles were overcome, the DD35s were reasonably successful, but they were less flexible than smaller units, and less powerful than its DDA-40 replacement. And thus, with the economic downturn of the early 1980s, they were withdrawn from service. They spent their final months of service operating around Salt Lake City, Utah, before their retirement by 1981. Sadly, no examples of the DD35 or DD35A type were preserved.
So the DD35 is about as cut and dry as it gets. On the front and rear we have operating couplers, we have separately applied hoses, we have a separately applied and movable coupler cut bar, a separately applied chain and grab irons all throughout the front, and more grab irons here on the front of the cab. We have illuminated number boards and we have a flashing yellow light on top, which is kind of a nice touch. We have hand-painted crew figures, which is very cool. For number 81 that we have here, this is a fantasy paint scheme with the American flag. The prototypical ones did have the Union Pacific here down the side without the American flag. One, I do enjoy the flag as a US military veteran, and 2, it's the only one I can get. Down the side here we have more separately applied grab irons all the way down this very long engine. We have a separately applied plastic horn on the top, and then on the bottom that we'll show in a second, we have 2 separate speakers, which is a really nice touch. I appreciate that. We have 2 huge 4-axle trucks that are powered, and that's where the name comes from. DD is the truck arrangement, not double diesel, like most people think, which again, it's easy to confuse. On the top here, we have our dual smokestacks, one here for the front engine, one here for the rear engine, and a bunch of movable fans that are not powered. Under this cover, we have all of our controls, with our run program switch, our Bluetooth on-off switch, smoke on-off switch for the front, and then smoke on-off switch for the rear. And that's about it. There's not much to this one. Its biggest party trick is the fact that it's 2 diesels on one frame. And that's pretty cool. Let's take a look at what this thing looks like while it's running.